Hey everybody, this is Ms. Corey. Welcome to U3-L18 Intro to American Sniper, which is the next movie that we're going to watch for this class. So before we get started with the slideshow, just a little change to your study guide that you might have noticed. So here's your study guide here. This is part 2, right? So part 1 ended with Braveheart. This is part 2 where we have American Sniper in this corner of the world. The only difference is with while you watch the movie, like usually there was that chart that you fill out while you watch the movies. Instead of that, I have something called the big questions. So at approximately the end of like this each ed puzzle video of the movies, I'm going to ask you a big question and you're going to answer it here. Now I'm looking for specific evidences from the movie when you answer the big questions. Okay? Also, make sure that you develop at least 2 questions as you watch the movie. I try to answer them if I can find an answer. And then also the movie review. So it's 5 to 6 sentences describing how you felt about this film. And make sure that you put in lots of evidences because I am looking for lots of evidences. It's going to be the same thing for In This Corner of the World. We're just going to have the big questions. It's going to be the same concept. All right? Let me know if you have questions about that. All right, let's get going on our slideshow. So the first thing that we are going to talk about today is 9/11 because it kind of builds up background to American Sniper. So don't answer this on your study guide right now. Just answer this on the ed puzzle. What was 9/11? Or what do you know about it? Or when you hear those words, what do you think of? So 9/11, the main buildings that were involved with it were the World Trade Center. What those were they're very 2 large skyscrapers located in New York City. I'll show you a picture on the next slide. It was also used as offices and trading center for multiple countries. It was also called the Twin Towers, if you've ever heard of that before as well. It was also a tourist destination. They had a restaurant at one of the top floors. So here's a picture of the Twin Towers right here. You can really see that they stand out amongst the New York background. So during 9/11, so September 11th, 2001, both Twin Towers were destroyed due to 2 airplanes crashing into them. So 2,977 people died. The Pentagon was also targeted. That was a Boeing 757 that crashed into the Pentagon. If you don't know what the Pentagon is, it's shaped like a pentagon, and it is the headquarters of the U.S. military. And in that crash, there was 184 people that were killed. There's some videos. If you want to watch these videos, go right ahead. I try to record them, like during my lecture right here, but it didn't turn out, unfortunately. But if you want to go into Miss Corey's resources folder, there's a link to the slideshow. If you want to watch it, totally optional, but they are pretty informative. Here's one about the Pentagon too, if you want to go back and watch it. If not, totally optional. But again, it kind of gives you an insight of what was happening back on September 11th, 2001. There was also another plane that was targeting somewhere in Pennsylvania. Destinations unknown, although it is thought that it was going to go to somewhere in Washington, D.C., maybe the White House. And what is really significant about this is that the passengers in the plane actually realized what was happening, that like terrorists took over the control of the plane, and they actually fought back and crashed the plane before it could reach Washington, D.C. So everyone in the plane died, but it didn't crash into any buildings, so like no one on the ground got killed. So it was a pretty heroic story. There's actually 2 different movies called like United 93 or Flight 93. I showed them last year when I was teaching this unit at least, and pretty good movies. You can totally watch it if you want. So who was behind the 9/11 attacks? So there were 19 terrorist pilots from Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda is based in Afghanistan, and the mastermind was Osama bin Laden, who was from Afghanistan. So you're like, well, like why did they want to attack the United States? Was it just like to attack the United States? It was not. Well, I mean, it was, but there was some motivation behind it. So, America was really having a lot of influence in the Middle East, especially during the Cold War period. So they were aiding Israel in a fight against Palestine and other Arab countries, which Afghanistan did not appreciate. There was also the coup of 1953, where the U.S. ousted Afghanistan's leader. And then there was also something called the Iran-Contra affair that had to do with the U.S. illegally giving money to like the opposition group against Al-Qaeda. There's a lot of backstory to it all. If you want to learn more, you can certainly ask me about it, but these details won't super factor into the American Sniper at all, actually. It's just more building background knowledge for you. All right, so why was 9/11 significant? So it was the first time in many decades that there was a mass attack in the United States. The only other time, or the time before that, would have been Pearl Harbor back in World War II. So, question 1, I want you to write this in your study guide, this answer, okay? What was 9/11? Just give me like a 1 to 2 sentence summary of it. All right, don't write this in your study guide. Just answer this on Edpuzzle. What do you think the US will do in response to 9/11? Yes, they go to war. Okay? So they go to war with Afghanistan. That war lasts between 2001 and August of 2021. And the goal was to take revenge on 9/11, dismantle Al Qaeda, and kill Osama bin Laden, who was the head of Al Qaeda, which they do actually do. And it was to also remove Taliban from power, who the Taliban were the head of the government in Afghanistan. Now, if you paid attention to the news within the last 2 years, you might have seen news clips of this happening because, right, it just ended back in August of 2021, so not even 2 years ago. Yeah, it failed. Like 5 days later, in August of 2021, the Taliban retook power of Afghanistan. Yeah, not a shining moment for U.S. history. They also go to war with another country, and that is Iraq. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Iraq because that is the war that Chris Kyle, who is the main character in American Sniper, is he's in the war of Iraq. So question number 2, write this answer in your study guide. What did the U.S. do in response to 9/11? All right, so the Iraq War. So if you don't know where Iraq is, it is right here in the middle of the Middle East. So that was from 2003 to 2011. It started under President Bush. And the U.S. military was in war with Afghanistan over the 9/11 attacks. But why did they want to go to war with Iraq? That's not Afghanistan. Yes. So it was because President Bush was very convinced that the Iraqi leader, Saddam Hussein, who's right here, had weapons of mass destruction. And also to get oil, because, America. All right, so weapons of mass destruction, what are they? They're either chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons. So a chemical example would be sarin, which is a nerve gas, and that's where the brain can't transmit information to the body. So pretty much a person who inhales it chokes to death because their lungs just completely stop working. Biological, Q fever. That's a bacteria. It causes pneumonia. There's also nuclear weapons like the A-bomb, which happened like what the U.S. dropped in Japan in World War II, which we'll talk about like in a week or two. That is where radiation and heat kills millions instantly. It destroys ecosystems and it causes cancer in survivors. So, question number 3. Write this answer in your study guide. What are weapons of mass destruction? All right, here's a video of President Bush talking about weapons of mass destruction. I mean, the way he talks, he convinces a lot of people, the American public, that there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But there is an irony to all of this. So, according to the Center of Public of Integrity, President Bush talked about weapons of mass destruction publicly 935 times. That's right, 935 times the American people would have heard him talk about weapons of mass destruction. But after the Iraq War, the CIA went into Iraq and searched um, Iraqi buildings, fields, anything that they found suspicious, and there were zero weapons of mass destruction found. Zero. Okay? All right, so it ends in 2011. 200,000 innocent Iraqi civilians are dead. 4,200 US soldiers are dead. The US does have a slight success in killing Saddam Hussein in 2006. They actually find him in this hole right here. He was like in the middle of like woods and they were looking for him. And all of a sudden, like one of the soldiers was like, "Who's this man in this hole?" It was him. So the other success that the US did have in this war was creating a democratic republic in Iraq. But again, the whole thing about weapons of mass destruction didn't exist. So, 3 reasons why the US attacked Iraq in 2003. Iraq was developing nuclear weapons. Iraqi citizens had no rights under Saddam Hussein's regime. And the US believed Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which he did not. All right, so now let's talk about Chris Kyle. So, have you ever heard of Chris Kyle before? If so, what do you know about him? If nothing, that's okay. You can just type none in the ed puzzle. All right, so he was the son of a church deacon and a Sunday school teacher, actually. So like 2 pretty peaceful occupations, right, for parents. But he actually ended up being the most lethal sniper in US history so far. He had over 160 confirmed kills, and like I mentioned before, he served in the Iraq War. So he grew up in Texas. His only real previous gun experience was hunting with his dad. At 24, he dropped out of college, joined the Navy SEALs. He himself classified himself as a gentle person. He said, if I see a puddle, he told Time magazine, I will walk around it. So he was deployed to Iraq in 2003. The first mission was to help Marines take back Baghdad, which is the capital. His job was to be the eyes on the top of roofs and snipe anyone that may have harmed the US soldiers that were on the ground. So one of the probably the interesting stories about him is explaining his first kill. So he says that 50 yards away, he suddenly saw the door of a small house open and a woman stepped outside with her child. As she neared the Marines, Kyle watched through the crosshairs as the woman reached beneath her robe and pulled out a yellow grenade. Take a shot, ordered Kyle's platoon chief. Kyle hesitated as the Marines continued to march closer. Shoot, cried the chief. Kyle squeezed the trigger twice. The woman fell dead on the ground along with the exploding grenade, which did not harm any of the Marines. It was Kyle's first kill with a sniper rifle. Many more deadly shots would be fired, but the hesitation would never return. It was my duty to shoot, and I don't regret it. The woman was already dead. I was just making sure she didn't take any Marines with her. All right, so Chris Kyle would then go on to do 3 more tours of duty in 04, 06, and 08. He could hit a target accurately from 1.2 miles away. The Iraqi government, as you could probably expect, hated him and actually put a bounty on his head of $20,000. They called him the Devil of Ramadi, and Ramadi is one of the cities that he was stationed at in 2006. So he also had challenges in his personal life, which you'll see in the movie. So he had left the Navy in 2009 after his wife was like, either you leave the Navy or we're getting a divorce. So he really struggled with transitioning from military to civilian life, which you'll see a lot of in the movie. He really struggled with his role as a father. Although he left the war didn't leave him. So you're going to see that theme a lot, especially towards the middle-ish, endish of the movie. So there's also some controversy over Chris Kyle and his book American Sniper. It's highly debatable, but it's something that I, as a history teacher, you kind of have to I like mentioning many sides of stories, right? So he stated in his autobiography that he punched Jesse Ventura in a bar after Ventura allegedly mocked SEALs. And Ventura claimed that he never met Kyle, and Ventura actually ended up winning $1.8 million lawsuit over false allegations about him. If you don't know who Jesse Ventura is, here's a picture of him. He was a professional wrestler, and then he turned into Minnesota's governor for like a term. It was an interesting time in history. That was before I was even alive. But anyway, so there's also controversy that Kyle falsely inflated his unofficial kill number. So what a kill number is like the amount of people that the US government confirms like a soldier killed. There's like debate if he inflated his number in his book to make him look more deadly, I guess. Yeah. He also lied about killing two men who tried to carjack him in Dallas. Like, that's just kind of like an off-the-wall lie that he did, that he also mentions in his book. So, yeah, I don't know. I actually have not read his book. So, if any of you have, that'd be interesting. I'd like to hear about it. So, here's kind of the synopsis of the movie from IMDb. So it's a Navy SEAL sniper. Chris Kyle's pinpoint accuracy saves countless lives on the battlefield and turns him into a legend. Back home with his family after 4 tours of duty, however, Chris finds that it is the war he can't leave behind. So here's the last question. Question number 4. Write your answer in the study guide. In 2 to 3 sentences, predict what you think will happen in the movie American Sniper. All right. So here's just kind of a look ahead at what the next few weeks are going to look like. So we're here right here, approximately April 27th. You're doing U3-L18, Intro to American Sniper. So tomorrow you're going to start watching American Sniper. Again, I just chop it up into half-hour chunks. It's going to take us all the way through May 4th. And then May 5th will be the legacy of Chris Kyle. So I will get you, or for that assignment, it is like I hate calling it a worksheet. It's not really a worksheet. But what it is I posted 2 YouTube videos on this Google Doc. Watch the videos, answer the questions in the boxes below. It's pretty straightforward. And then after that, we're looking into the week of May 8th through 12th. May 8th, it's just going to be a catch-up day. You know, if you're caught up, cool, relax, chill, work ahead if you like. If you are not caught up, I highly suggest you do, because at that point of time, we're looking at less than a month of school left. And then we are going to do a Ed puzzle video that I'll make about the intro to Other Side of the World, kind of introducing World War II, Japan's involvement in World War II, and also just a little bit more background on In This Corner of the World. And then on May 10th, you are going to start watching In This Corner of the World. It's a shorter movie compared to the other ones, so it's not going to take as long as like Braveheart or Red Cliff. Take forever. All right. That's all I got. Let me know if you have questions. If not, I hope you have an awesome week. Bye.